Peck, peck, peck. Do the big. Hey, what is up you guys, and welcome to Young Family Farms. Today we're going to be taking a real quick look at all things you need to know about having backyard chickens. And we're going to be talking everything from picking out baby chicks to the infrastructure and equipment you need, brooding them, up to adult birds, and try to give you those cheat codes so you don't make some of the same mistakes we did over our last 3 years of raising chickens. Also want to give you some great resources. There's links below for everything mentioned in the video, as well as free PDF download you can find there. So yeah, without further ado. All right, so once anywhere in our brooding boxes, in our run here inside the house, once we start to lose that fresh, bright color, I'm gonna go ahead and add 2 to 3 inches of fresh pine shavings in here. The rule is 2/3 brown to 1/3 green. Green being the poop, brown being the cedar shavings. If your concentration starts to get a little bit high, you can just go ahead and add a little bit more. They're gonna turn it in, mix it in for you. Don't worry about it being perfectly spread out or anything like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and chase them up into the house while I do this, close the door so they're locked, and then we'll switch them and I'll do inside. All right, so we added what, almost half a bag. Maybe a cup total, 2 cups total. Half cup inside, cup and a half outside, something like that. 2-3 inches, kind of spread out, a little whitish tint you'll see to it. If you look closely, the diatomaceous earth is fairly spread in, and that's about what you should keep it looking like. If it starts to look like this, well, you need to add some fresh shavings. This is essentially what people would call the deep litter method. Really, you don't have to change the bedding very often. You're gonna end up with about 6 inches, and they're gonna turn it for you and scratch it, as you can already see them doing. But maybe twice a year. Depends on the amount of birds you have and the size of the space and how much bedding you have. Essentially what this does, it acts like a big diaper for you so that you're not having to daily come in here and shovel it all out. So their manure just blends in, a nice, healthy, bioactive environment begins existing, and it breaks it down. Should have no smell, no odor. It should be fine. You shouldn't really even see any poop. It's like constantly being mixed in. Same thing with the big birds. I'll show you the exception. This is our setup, and again, I have their brood plate running just a little bit in the evenings. This heat lamp is no longer plugged in. I'll take that out of there soon. Okay, I'm gonna do the same for the big girls, but show you the exception. Probably heard that clucking. That was Goldie finishing up. So she's done. And now I'll show you a little bit about the inside of this house now that it's free. All right, so the way I have this mounted, it can just pull right off. And you can see how it has kind of these screw holes that it just slides onto those screws so I can lift it off, which is great. Now you will see where they do like to poop is the same place every day, every night, which happens to be right back there when they're roosting. So I'm gonna go ahead at least once a week and rake that out of here, show you what I do with it. And I've been having to keep the bed shavings very minimal in this room just because they were wanting to create little burrows and lay floor eggs in here. So I tried putting in pavers to make it uncomfortable for them to have a spot to lay an egg, to encourage them to use their reverse rollout nesting boxes. I started with just a little bit of shavings in there, but we're up to the point where it's essentially no shavings in there, just a tiny bit. And it's working. And to keep them from roosting in here, I took the roost perch off of it. You don't want them sleeping in here and pooping in here all night. So what I actually had to do for a while is come and take the nesting box off. I had the piece that was cut from here. I was sliding back in every evening so that they had to get used to roosting on their perch. These small dowels, they don't feel as secure. They really like these bigger square 2x2s. If you wanted to use real sticks, whatever, that would work. Kind of this ladder concept with them oriented flat seems to work really well. They like this. That's the gist. I will grab the little rake that out. That's why I like having this openable, so I can just essentially rake it right on out and scoop it up here and put it in the compost tumbler. So that will move us on to composting. All right, so cleaning, coop, and composting. As you just saw, I cleaned out the area underneath the roost. That gets done about once a week. I go straight into my tumbler. Other things, kitchen scraps, some grass clippings go into here until this starts to get full, but this is where I start. Compost that's in smaller amounts, such as grass clippings, this, paper plates and such, gets a start. This looks like it could actually use a squirt of water to be the right moisture. You definitely don't want too wet, but you don't want too dry. So then I go ahead and turn this. Once this starts to get full, these are pretty great. Get that mixed in there a little bit. And that manure is hot enough that it will start to cook some of those other scraps down pretty well if there's enough moisture content, those paper plates and such. Again, as mentioned, I really only clean out the entire coop maybe twice a year. I do it in the spring once the rain has stopped and kind of get fresh bedding. You don't want to take all of it. You still want to leave about an inch or so, so just get the most of it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but that beneficial environment that you have built in there that's thriving, you want to keep enough of that stays alive. Don't take it all out. Then 3-4 bags, put double as much as you would, getting another 4 inches of fresh shavings. I wheelbarrow all of that out, and all of that goes to my main compost pile, which is underneath here. This just got started a few weeks ago when I cleaned it out for the spring, the coop. So anytime I have an overflow, so my compost tumbler's too full, or I've just got an excessive amount of tree trimmings or raked area, or the chicken coop gets emptied, it goes here into the pile. This is aerated compost. I'll link below No-Till Growers. I saw this on their site, Farmer Jesse. He is fantastic. Check them out, absolutely. But I'll link the video below to his aerated compost, which this is. So give you a quick rundown on it though. Inside this box is a kid's Jumphouse Blower. It is connected to this non-perforated 4-inch pipe that ties into, I think technically the perforated pipe's 3-inch. Has holes all the way around it, all the way down. Then that's essentially coiled like a snake underneath the pile. It's set to an interval timer, so every hour that fan kicks on, blowing oxygen underneath this pile for about 1 minute. It keeps it from turning anaerobic, it keeps it from getting gross, bad smells, helps it break down faster. I just keep adding to it every now and again. Every week or two, I will lightly turn the pile. Again, this is pretty fresh though, only a few weeks old, but it's looking good. It could be a little more moist, but that's okay. A little dry is better than too moist when it comes to composting. Monitor your temperatures. This is a whole nother topic though, but that's the general to, I guess, the chicken manure and the composting. The way I do it. Although there's a million ways to compost, as you probably know, do what works best for you. There is red wigglers in here. I did add some. They usually stay around the base of the pile. What's great about having them in a pile is they can go to where the conditions are right for them. That might be leaving your pile, but enough are gonna be around. They may stay towards the bottom where it's moister and more hot and more broken down, but they'll go up into the pile as well, as long as you got the conditions right, but they can escape if you don't have the right conditions right. That being said, that was composting. All right, let's talk food. Here is my lineup of what I include in their food mix. It's a little intense. You probably don't need to go this crazy, but I'll share with you what I got going on here. So this is kind of my base, just because this is available here at Costco. Well, the Poway Costco, not the Carmel Mountain Costco. So it depends on your Costco. You might be able to get this. It's organic, it's GMO, it's probiotics. It's mostly wheat, corn, and soy. It's not ideal, but it's cheap and it's readily available and it's not terrible. I really love, as I mentioned earlier, the Scratch and Peck Feeds brands. This one does have a grub protein in it. It is soy and corn free, which is great. Just using that would be awesome. It just gets a little bit expensive. So I actually mix these two. I do like 2/3 to 1/3 or so. So about that ratio of that bag to that bag when I'm making a mix. I love to include kelp meal in here. So this is a Thorvin. I'll link all this stuff below too, but this is for everything. Cows, pigs, sheep, horses. I mix it right in. Some people would put it on the side. I mix it into their feed at 1 to 2% ratio. It's about 80 bucks for a 50-pound bag of this, but it's great. This will last you forever. So 1 to 2%. How do I calculate that? So I'm doing a 35-gallon drum, so I call it 30 gallons because by the time you add your other things, I call it 30 gallons. So then I do it by gallon. A lot of them say by weight. That starts to get a little bit complex. So I just shoot for kind of in the middle and do it by gallons. So 30 gallons, 3% would be 0.9 of a gallon, 2% would be 0.6 of a gallon. So somewhere around that, 0.7 gallons. Well, for this, it'd be a little bit less. I'd probably go about a half a gallon. But that's absolutely great. All the trace minerals you could ever want. It's great. It's Icelandic. bark, sea kelp. It's great for everything. I mix it in the ground, I mix it in my compost. It just gives you a really good natural balance, just the way that nature intended it. We'll skip right on to the Nutri Balance. This stuff is awesome as well. It's made of different kelp meals, alfalfa meals, and it's just different probiotics and vitamins, minerals. Specifically for chickens, this stuff is awesome as well. And the percentage, I want to say, I usually write them on here. This one was 3%. So again, in my instance, that would be like 0.9 of a gallon. Diatomaceous earth is 2%, do not exceed 2% mixed into the food. So this, I would be putting 0.6 of a gallon in there. I usually put like 0.5. I put a little bit of black sunflower seed in as well. I put a little bit of premium Songbird Blend. They just love it. If they can get under the bird feeders and eat this stuff, they will, so might as well. Then to give them a little bit of a treat, I give them, in there I'll mix in a little bit of black soldier fly larvae and mealworms. And all of these I'll do like 1% of these. Same with crushed red pepper. Crushed red pepper, the capsium in it will help your egg color. It makes them like a darker orange to almost red. It'll keep rodents out of your food. Rodents can sense it and don't like it. Chickens don't have the necessary hardware in those beaks to be able to sense heat. So feel free to give them some crushed red pepper as well. This is a little bit of my blend. I mix them in the ratios, as I mentioned, into a 35-gallon drum. Show you that drum over here. You could do something smaller though. So here's my chicken feed drum. It's a food grade 35-gallon drum. Something like this, a dog food 50-pound thing. I had been using this prior just to make a bit of a mix here. But this is great, seals up tight. On that diatomaceous earth, it really does help keep the pests down, not only in the food itself and in the bedding, in the coop, use it everywhere, but also it can help with intestinal parasites and such in the birds as well for them to be eating it, and has calcium. Oh, the last thing is oyster shell. I will blend in some oyster shell as well. Can't go wrong with that. The extra calcium is really good, as mentioned, you know, when your hens are producing eggshells every day. So that's my blend that I make. And then again, I do it all in a large batch so that I don't have to do it as frequently. Who's laying an egg now? Come on, girl, get it out. And then I do it into a 5-gallon tub so it automatically keeps feeding. And yeah, that's the gist. I'll link all that stuff below. I'll put the ratios that you're supposed to mix it in as well. Again, technically it's by weight. That's getting a little complex. Unless you're doing, it's kind of intended for like if you're doing 1,000 pounds of feed, you throw in a 60-pound bag. For me, doing it by volume is much easier, so it's close enough. I'm not exceeding the limits or pushing the limits by any means, so it works for me. Forgot to mention grit. Grit is just small rocks that you mix into your food or sprinkle around the ground near their area. This helps in their gizzard, I guess, in their stomach. Helps break down the food. They need it, believe it or not. Again, scratch and peck, these guys are awesome. In chick grit is finer. You can start chicks on that earlier, mixing just a small amount into their food. Would recommend that. Now, if you do get bugs in your food, then go ahead and compost it. Your kelp meal, you got the diatomaceous earth, you got it sealed away. That can be the downside of having bulk on hand though, is that that's always a possibility. Running it through your compost pile will make great compost, and it's not the hugest loss. Don't feed gross stuff to your birds. Greens and garden scraps, anytime I have spare, I'll just come around the garden and just like, if things are flowering, if they've got some pests, whatever, I'll just come around and tear out as long as it's things they can eat. The scale's not looking good. So I'll just come rip stuff out and throw it in their coop, and they can eat it as they'd like. So the few things that you should not feed to chickens is citrus. Really nothing like citrus. Worms don't like it. I think it's because it's so kind of acidic and antimicrobial that it kind of kills your good bacteria. Anyways, no citrus, no rotting stuff. I don't really feed them dairy at all. I think you can a little bit. I don't do too much with cooked, especially greasy, spicy foods. I don't give to them. Any other waste scraps though, good to go. Onions are a no-go. Avocados, the meat itself is okay, but I don't give them the seed or the shell, so I just leave the avocados out with the chickens. I think they could handle some of at least the meat. I think the toxic part's in the seed. Comment below, let me know the truth about avocados. No avocados, no onions, no leeks, no garlic, nothing in that family, no citrus. Nothing gross, nothing greasy, nothing rotten, nothing moldy. Everything else they can have. I give them first choice of those things. Everything else that falls under one of those goes directly into the compost. After it breaks down in the tumbler, it goes over to the worm pile. Let me know if I should be doing it better, doing something different. And let me know if I got anything wrong. It's how we all get better, right? Only been doing this 3-4 years, so I'm sure there's a lot I have to improve upon as well, but hopefully you found something helpful.